All right, today we're going to talk about the 8 basic steps of every OIG investigation. And the point is to help you understand what's happening during the investigation so that you can be prepared for it. Welcome to OMG, it's the OIG, a serious look at Office of Inspector General investigations. My name is Sarah Croft. I'm a lawyer here in Washington, D.C., and our firm helps individuals, government employees, and companies who are federal contractors navigate OIG investigations. So if this video is helpful and you want to get in touch with us, all of my contact information is below. At the beginning of a case, all of our clients ask us what's going to happen. And on the one hand, we know that they're asking us if we can give them our best judgment about what the outcome of the investigation is going to be. But the other thing that they're asking is what's going to happen? What are the steps here? What is the OIG doing on its side, and what's going to happen on my side? So today, with the help of a graphic we put together, I'm going to walk through each of the 8 steps of most OIG investigations. Now keep in mind that every OIG investigation is different. Everyone is unique. Depends on how many witnesses there are, how many documents they have to look at, and so forth. But the point of the video today is just to walk you through basically what happens in each of these investigations. So let's go through those 8 steps now. The first step is that the OIG receives some sort of complaint. Now, every OIG runs a hotline, so people can email, they can call, they can get in touch with the OIG any way they want. And the people who can make these complaints are your coworkers, your supervisor, people you supervise. It can be people outside the agency, it can be people at a different agency, it can be anyone at all. So the very first step is the OIG actually receiving a complaint about something that you did. Now, the second step is internal to the OIG, and that's when the OIG does its internal review of that complaint to see if it wants to open a formal investigation. Now, that step involves the OIG looking at what the complaint was. They're going to look at whether or not they even have the jurisdiction to investigate that person, whether or not they have jurisdiction over what the complaint is about, and so forth. Assuming that the OIG decides there is enough there for them to open an investigation, then we get to step 3. All right, the third step of an OIG investigation is for the OIG to collect and review internal documents, so documents that are at the agency. Now, most often this is going to mean the OIG will collect all of your work emails. And sometimes our clients get a little bit nervous about this, and understandably, because if you've emailed a spouse, a friend, whoever, the OIG can review and look at those emails and determine whether or not you did something wrong. But the OIG will not only look at your emails, they're going to gather emails from other people, so other people who may have been involved in the wrongdoing or other people who may be witnesses. And they'll also gather documents from your computer, from shared drives, from any storage devices, and so forth. So the OIG, depending on the size of the investigation, can cast a pretty wide net internally to get documents. Now, the fourth step is to interview other people. They will interview the person who complained if they can, the person who made the initial allegation, the whistleblower, sometimes they're called, and they'll interview other witnesses within your agency. So they can interview your colleagues, your supervisor, your subordinates, anyone they'd like within the agency. They can also try to interview people outside of the agency, but except for the Department of Defense, the OIG within your agency cannot force other people to be interviewed. So DoD's OIG does have broader powers in this regard, but most other agencies can only force people within your agency to be interviewed and not people outside of the agency. So for example, if you're a federal contractor and you work outside of the agency, you have a contract with the agency, it may not be true that they can force you to be interviewed. So you need to keep that in mind when you're deciding whether or not to be interviewed. All right, the fifth step is for the OIG to go to sources for documents outside of your agency. So this could mean things like bank records. They can send a subpoena or a civil investigative demand to a bank. They can get all of your bank records, and they can see the payments into and out of your bank. They can get documents from other companies who work with the agency, and so forth. So they can force these other entities to turn over documents to the OIG as part of its investigation. Whether or not the OIG goes to this trouble depends on the allegation against you. So sometimes it's such a small allegation about maybe time and attendance, whether or not you showed up to work every day. They probably don't need documents outside of the agency. But for some of the bigger investigations and things where they're looking at potential criminal liability, they will go to these outside sources to try to get documents. All right, the sixth step is to interview you, if you are the target of the investigation. Now, some OIGs will try to interview the target at the beginning of the investigation and then at the end after they've done their investigation. But it really depends on the agency and the agent who's running the investigation. But they will always ask you for your views and give you a chance to explain your side during an interview. Now, we have a few other videos about what happens during the interview, how long it's going to last, and so forth, so you can check those out for more information about that. But that will always be a step during the investigation. All right, the seventh step is for the OIG to do basically its analysis of whether or not you did something wrong. Now, of course, the agent is doing this all along the way and deciding how big the investigation should be or how small the investigation should be. If it's a very small investigation and you didn't do anything wrong, then it's going to get wrapped up more quickly. And if it's a very big investigation, it looks like there might be serious wrongdoing, then it will be a much longer and more involved investigation. But at the end of it, the OIG will be making a conclusion about whether or not the allegations are substantiated, meaning they're true, or not substantiated, meaning they weren't true or they weren't able to prove that they were true. So during the seventh step, the OIG is looking at everything, all the interviews, all the documents, and deciding whether or not the allegations are true or false. All right, and the eighth and final step is for the OIG to decide what to do with its conclusions. Now, there are usually internal guidelines within each OIG about how they handle it, but generally they will write some sort of report or memo, and they will give that to your supervisor to decide whether or not there should be any punishment imposed against you, any sort of discipline. They can also refer you to the Department of Justice if they think that you did something illegal. That can happen early in the investigation, or it can happen at the end. But you can always count on some sort of outcome at the end. Now, hopefully it's not a bad outcome, but there will always be some final conclusion to what the OIG did. I hope you found this video to be helpful. If it was and you want to get in touch, please feel free to use the contact information in the notes below and contact us anytime. Thanks so much for watching.